So our first paper is from Dipbuk. Really great. I'm really looking forward to this. Remember your paper last year with real pleasure. So off you go, okay?
Okay, thank you, Gayle. This is called Murmurations from the Police. I live in the Fens. I live in the Fens area near Cambridgeshire, just outside Ely. The towering cathedral is in the distance. Murmurations in the Fens, in the flat landscape, sound travels, unhindered by woodland trees. I love to see the clouds of birds. The tremors reverberate through the air. Vibrations of birds becoming the murmuration. I love to see you funnel toward the ground and then back up again, growing in number, and then with darting, undulating movements, you take on a new life. I've been thinking of you for a while. Who decides where you go? Who joins? Which direction to go? Yes, this is a collective endeavour. That's what I keep hearing. Democracy is said to be collective. Yet I'm not convinced the loudest and proudest voices are not heard, the clearest. For some, the democratically determined decision may not be the one favoured. So does toleration become the order and reproduction the endeavour? Yes, normativity is developed, and the ubiquitous bell curve of representation emerges. But is the murmurations movement always a curve? Are the weakest birds the last to turn, dive and merge? Or are these the most resilient and adaptable because they can turn, dive, merge, and diverge at the calling of the collective, subduing their own subversive yearnings? If the collective call is as powerful as that of human belonging and so-called collective thinking, is there room to say no? In the city of Rome, the murmuration of starlings is increasing as climate change takes hold. The local authority sees their dances and calls to roost as a nuisance. Can the murmuration be a gang? The murmuration is why I look forward to autumn and the bleakness of the fenland landscape. However, starling poop is said to be oily and hazardous to cars and drivers. Beauty and destruction cannot be so easily be separated. I've interviewed almost 30 people from my PhD fieldwork, where I'm looking at the police uniform and its influence on the body in terms of the formation of identity when worn. In doing so, I'm also looking at the institution of the police and its power over the body's identity. It has been 25 years since I wore the uniform. I still have nightmares of my time in the police. I wake up scared, disorientated, anxious, worried, preoccupied, and forgetful. I wake up, and despite reality, I have flashbacks of my nightmare. What's going on? With each discussion with serving police officers, I feel the draw of the blue silito check, that is, the blue and white pattern so pervasive with police forces in England. This autoethnographic investigation expresses how, 25 years on, a person will still feel powerful longings to rejoin what is clearly an abusive relationship. They will make you into a man, my father would say. My deeply held recognition is, I've never wanted to be a man. On my first day out in uniform, on my own, on Stratford Road, Birmingham. Go get 'em, Dipbuk. Go get 'em, Dipbuk, my sergeant said. But them are the people that look like me. I could easily have been in their position. These thems would have been my brethren. They may have feared me as the brown copper carrying the power of coloniality and oppression, as I executed the law without discretion. Interestingly, transferring to Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk, and policing predominantly white folks, I felt more at home. My colleagues would joke with me. I felt included, and I was able to share a little more of myself. There were still boundaries. I couldn't, for example, pair up with a tall and loud South African officer. It was clear what he thought of people like me. I couldn't arrest members of the public for racism towards me, because if I did, I could easily fill all the cells. I was not in control of the police family. The nightmares don't stop. On foot patrol, bumping into my ex-tutor constable in the night. The police van parked at the side of the station. The calmness of the dark night. And the bundling of a local youth into a van filled with around 5 officers in the back. I could hear voices from within the van. Then the sight of my ex-tutor pulling on his leather gloves and saying to me, "You're with the big boys now. Either walk away and say nothing or come inside." I chose to walk away. He got promoted. The nightmares don't stop. Policing in Birmingham, a young woman around my age, pleading for help, as her violent husband assaults her. The sharing of Gujarati. Her vulnerability. She would always specifically ask for my help, as no other officers were interested in helping her. She was known for making numerous calls and being incoherent. Violence and trauma in a domestically violent situation can indeed do this. I had accumulated too much annual leave and had no choice but to book leave. But before going, I put in markers and engaged help from outside agencies to keep an eye on her. On my return, she was found dead. Her young preschool child is now motherless, and her husband is in custody. If only the police family were grounded in compassion rather than the myth of catching criminals. The police can and do help people, but they can also ruin lives simultaneously. The nightmares continue. You can and do make fun of me. You can and do ridicule me. You can and do humiliate me. You can and do delegitimize my knowledge and ability and defile my character. Yet, I want to come back. I want to be held in your arms. I want to be in your family. Why? You call me the Chawala, laugh, snigger, kick, and trample my confidence. Yet I still think about rejoining. With each interview, the call is more potent. I'm now staring you in the face. Your allure. I want to believe that I am worthy of being able to imagine some semblance of change or reformation. I keep willing myself to sleep, and I want to dream lucidly How can I be free from you when I know that you should contain a harmful to health warning sign, like a pack of cigarettes? You were my one and only. Now I'm no longer a part of you. I'm still mesmerized by your look. I'm still swayed by the thought of rejoining your warmth, comfort, and tight hold. I have you, the police, to thank. I now remain calm under extreme pressure. I don't panic. My composure becomes embedded in the stillness of each captured time frame as people seek to pass me by without being countered. But this was an ability I already possessed. You, the police, have honed my ability. I have much to offer you. I know you hurt me. I know you laugh at me, but I want nothing more than to impress you. I want you to like me. In a narrative-style interview with a mid-ranking police officer, I tender my thoughts and perspectives in favor of my reaction towards what I perceive to be his longing for whiteness. I notice he seeks to avoid discussing racism within the police's structures of power. In response, I discuss some of my experiences as a means of saying it's okay to talk about such things, but it seems as if it's insufficient reassurance. I press on. Then, through the breakthrough, we talk about promotion, and he explains how he was about to retire with only a few days to spare and plucked up the courage to speak directly with the chief constable. At that point, he was able to secure his promotion and become involved in his current role. I eventually made a breakthrough, and he talked about the structural inequities, being Muslim and being blue, having a Muslim name and advocating for the police officer's cause. However, it is not your story that evokes me. It is not your story that attracts me. It is not you. It is when I speak with white officers. I still have the vivid memory of walking past my academic colleagues as they spoke together in their academic cluster on criminology. I found myself striding past them. I felt proud. Between us was the sight of a tall, white male officer in full response uniform, yellow vest beaming authority, and an earpiece engaged with the unsettled world of emergency response. You beam legitimacy. You beam an outward impression of being in control. You beamed confidence into me, but that confidence could only be exercised on the stage of public policing. In the briefing room, I was your kicking boy. I loved the starlings as they called. I could hear your wings beat. My heart fluttered. My attention was captivated. My breath shortened. My chest tightened. Inward, my breath moved, and my eyes were fixed. I could feel the wind, my skin soaked in the energy you had all created. But then I knew that if I joined your flock, I would again be in an impermeable state of anguish. I would again be rigid, solid, and unable to allow the air of humanness to penetrate my mind. I would again be torn between the justice felt and the injustice seen. I'm now worried about feeling my next murmuration. Thank you.
Deepak, thank you so much. That was just wonderful, so powerful, such a beautiful weaving of narrative, research experience, your own experience, just lovely. Thank you so much. Wonderful. And now we have Chris and Vince. Yes?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Slide on over. Grand Rising, everyone. Oh, that's, y'all haven't met me before. Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising. So, Grand Rising means good morning. Yes, so I will try that one more time. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Yes, yes. And to my loves back there online, are we looking here or are we looking there?
You're looking there.
All right. Grand Rising, good morning. My name is Dr. Chris Omni, and we are here to talk about Black joy. And one of the reasons why we're doing that is because in this field of autoethnography, it is way too often that we hear about trauma, we hear about pain. So in my dissertation, which I am proud to announce was the International Association of Autoethnography and Narrative Inquiry Dissertation of the Year. Thank you. Thank you. My topic was on Black joy in green spaces. So the area that I'm carving out is eco-autoethnography and Black joy. After that dissertation, I decided that I wanted to not just do this intergenerational study with Black women ranging between the ages of 24, 34, 48, and 58, but to also expand that and involve Black men. So what you're going to see is a short film, and then one of the research participants, which was graciously my husband, the future Dr. Vincent Omni, and which I will toot his, he can toot his own horn, but he had an award recently. So, yeah. You want to say? No, he doesn't. Okay. So, yeah, I know. Little opposite in that space. So what we want to do is show you this short film and then pass it over to him to talk about the experience of Black men, Black joy, rest, and nature. So here is the film, Souls of Black Men. All right. Go ahead. I saw you go like this, like, should I clap or is she about to talk? We received the love. Thank you. Thank you. So this short film featured 3 Black men ranging in ages between mid-30s and mid-50s. I love intergenerational conversations because you can learn so much in that space. And in the eco-autoethnographic investigation, we're looking at different elements of nature and how that communicates to us and how that informs who we are in that moment. And if you notice, the film was broken down into 3 sections, so that's how I kind of divided my research. First of all, it was the invitation. What I learned from my dissertation is that a lot of times for Black women, it was the invitation to slow down that allowed them to slow down. Because wearing this metaphorical cape of being the strong Black woman, it was always being something for somebody and doing something for somebody. But I also felt the same way for Black men. They don't call it the strong Black man phenomena, they call it the strong Black woman phenomena. But I wanted to take that information from my dissertation and invite Black men to take their capes off. After the invitation was the acceptance, because it's one thing for me to say, will you go watch the sunset with me? It's another for you to say, you know what, I'm gonna pause the demands of my day to say yes and go watch the sunset. And then there was the reflection at the end. So I would like to pass the mic and ask Mr. Omni to talk about the invitation to let being be enough.
Yes, hello, good morning. So I'm Vince, and so the invitation. Yeah, the invitation, I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and I kind of inherited this kind of like uber responsibility, characterization. I always assume responsibility for things that are not my responsibility. And so when she asked me, to stop and watch a sunset, I was like, oh, so we watching the sun. That's what we're doing. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's the mission, and that I understand the mission. It was a little difficult for me to just stop and sit down and just say, hey, I'm just going to sit here and just quietly, reflect on this. That was a little difficult for me to just kind of like to wrap my mind around, because I felt like I could have been. I'm a PhD student at Florida State University, in my final year of the program, in the English department. So yeah, I felt like I had things to do. So yeah. Is there another question?
The second part, can you talk to us about the acceptance after you received the invitation?
So the acceptance, still for me, kind of skeptical. I'm walking around, we take the little trek from the point of invitation to the point where I'm going to sit down on this bench and I'm going to watch the sunset. We're at a lake in northern Florida, and there are gators, and so I'm not fully relaxed, but it is a peaceful situation. And I was able to sit there, and it took maybe a good 20 minutes. So that was a time lapse that you saw. It took maybe 20 minutes for the sun to set. And I remarked on the way back from on the hike back to the car from the bench that it was very peaceful. It was calm, and for like 15 or 20 minutes, I wasn't thinking about being Black in North Florida. I wasn't thinking about, I wasn't thinking about the demands of my day. I was just thinking about, this is rather nice. Yeah. So.
And the last part is the reflection. We haven't been back to watch the sunset, but are there any elements of that experience that you have brought with you a year later?
So I think one of the things that, because your research is also tied into Black joy.
Yes.
Okay, and so one of the things that after the taping, and as we began to talk about how will we disseminate this research, and I just kept reflecting on Black joy, and I felt like I think the best reflection of Black joy is being your authentic self. Just being able to be who you are authentically without wearing, a mask, which, for Black folks in the United States is a protective device. It is a survival strategy, a mechanism. But I feel like in order to be like truly joyful, you have to sometimes take that mask off. We talk about taking off the cape. And I think sometimes for Black men who feel like, I grew up in Denver, Colorado. This is an area, I came of age, a teenager in the late 80s and the 90s, and this was a time of rampant gang violence. Crack cocaine had already ravaged much of the Black community in Denver, Colorado. And so having your head on a swivel, having dangers within the house and dangers without the house. And so being able to negotiate those spaces required a certain amount of presenting a rugged exterior that served me well in that time, but may not have served me well in my later life. And so, being able to take off the mask and just be a more authentic person, I think is one of the reflections that I think that is not an easy thing to do in a world where Blackness is preyed upon, is sought out and destroyed. And so, yeah. I don't know if there are any other questions I'm supposed to answer.
No, since we really only have 8 minutes, that was wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
So to wrap that piece up and bring it back around to eco-autoethnography, I invite each and every one of you to let being be enough. I invite you to spend time in nature and watch the sunrise, sunset, watch the trees. And as a matter of fact, how much time do we have for this piece? Do we have extra time? Are we done? Say what I need to say. Look, girl, don't say that, because you were with me in St. Pete. I can talk. I invite you right now to look out the window. If you are able to get up and look out that window, look out this window, feel the breeze, I don't have a lot of time, 45 seconds, get up, look out the window, feel the breeze, and then quickly tell me, what is that communicating to you in this moment? 45 seconds, go. And for my loves at home, look out your window and put in the chat, what do you see and what is that communicating to you right now? This is an example of eco-autoethnography. What is it? Ooh, some people are going like this, the invitation to come in, I see that. Go ahead. Just feel. And then when you're finished, come back, have a seat. I like how some people are standing at the window and like, I don't want to go back and have a seat. My background is public health, 25 years strong. My foreground is art education. So what you just did was engage in physical activity to go and look out the window. A lot of times we sit and get in these conferences, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to move, but now we're going to turn that mic over to you. Just shout out anything that you received and what you saw outside. And Frank, I know you participated in our workshop, so you already did a nice poetic example of being behind the wheel and then seeing the trees. But anybody else, shout out what you felt. Fresh. The birds. Cool. Peace. Stretched. Yes. Toe. Told. Okay. Invigorated. Life. Life. Oh, up here. Clouds speak to me. Calm. Self-protective structures. Grateful. Still. Cool. Calm. in need of warmth. It's like, it's cold where you are, understood. As I'm trying to create this, and there's no such thing as something new under the sun, but for eco-autoethnography, take the time to let being be enough. Take the time to be outside and communicate with Mother Earth and see what she's saying back to you. And always, always find a way to amplify your joy. My name is Dr. Chris Omni. Thank you so much for participating in Souls of Black Men, and thank you, Mr. Omni, for sharing your truth.
Thank you so much, Vince. Thank you so much, Chris. The beauty and the stillness, I'm sure we all really appreciate that. I'm struck too, some wonderful connections, you know, the beauty through the, Deepak was talking about beauty and destruction and the relationship between the two. And when he was talking, you know, I was seeing the birds and the murmuration he was talking about. And then you took us there. So what a wonderful link. So I'm super impressed by the way all the papers are put together in this conference. It just seems to work really beautifully. So we have about 12 minutes for some comments and some questions.
Thank you.
Where is it? Can't see it. Oh, hi, Beverly. Sorry, I thought I was looking on the chat. I thought it was on the chat. Please speak.
First of all, grand rising to the Omnis. I was with them on Sunday and it was brilliant. Thank you. And this is a question to Deepak. Thank you so much. Because I was in education and I was actually in leadership positions. But when I left the job and I decided I was going to leave because I couldn't stand it anymore, I had that same PTSD where you wake up literally in sweat and panic. And I love that you called it Murmuration of the Police. I think that was your title, Murmuration. And I realized, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it was. Because Gayle on Sunday actually showed us a movement of starlings in the morning. And everybody was saying how beautiful it was. But for me, it was horrific because it reminds me of the hive mind, how everybody moves together without any like distinction. So I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to ask you, well, not ask you, but just to say, maybe you'd like to comment. I understood what you meant when you talked about being in those white environments, because I felt that if I was with like Black children, I had to treat them more harshly than I had.
Yes.
Yeah, and I got it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for what you've just said and your comments and the sharing, because it's a horrible, looking back, for me it was and is, it's not nice. It's not good. It's like having cold, shitty porridge. I don't want it anymore, but it keeps coming back. And yeah, it was interesting also how you said the job, and it's referred to as that in that tone, and it's not, I wish it would leave and get out of my body, but it's not. I've got to find another way to be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's why the autoethnographic process was so good. I've just submitted my thesis and I literally spent the last 4 years unpicking some of that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. For those of you that can't see it, there is a comment in the chat from Emma. I instantly feel calm and living in the moment now. With what's been a stressful summer, we'll definitely be doing more of them techniques. Great presentations. Thanks. So lovely. Chris?
For Vince, I could really see how from your past, and I lived in Denver when you were there. Yeah, during those years, I could see how you would be at first wary because there are gators. You could be food in that situation, right? So you're ready. But I was wondering, in the film, there's a moment where I think it goes to black joy, and then it goes to reflection, and I didn't see a difference in the affect very much. I was wondering about like the expression of black men's expression of joy, because it looked like you were doing the same thing when you were reflecting, and I don't know if there's a distinct. When I saw you perform, Dr. Omni, it seemed like dancing and and very boisterous joy, but yours was reflective, and I just wondered about that.
Can you hear me, or do I need this?
Yeah, you need that. They can't.
Okay, yes, okay, great, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me now. So yes, I mean, in the film, I just want to make sure I understand the question. So you're saying, was there a sense of, was my reflection palpable? Was it something observable?
Joy and the reflection.
I think it was, I mean, you know, I don't know that distinction is the right word. I feel like it is a continuum. Like, I don't think that, you know, oh, I go sit at the lake and all of a sudden I'm joyful. I could say, oh, that was nice. You know, I could say that, you know, that was a nice break. I think we talk about this all the time. You know, and Dr. Chris has helped me understand the distinctions between happiness and joy. Happiness is something that happens to you. So things happen on the outside that make you happy, but joy is something that emanates from within. And I think being able to cultivate a mindset, cultivate a mentality, cultivate an emotional state where you can experience joy is a process. And so I think part of that's why I talk about this idea of maybe being vulnerable for Black men. I think that there are, you know, very harmful negative stereotypes of Black masculinity that pervade the African diaspora. I mean, very harmful stereotypes. And I think that, you know, that being able to present Black masculinity in its myriad forms, being able to, you know, like I said, be vulnerable. And I think that's a key part of this. I'm not a researcher. I don't want to pretend that I'm an autoethnographer or a researcher. I'm just a guy, right? But I do feel as if the need to, if joy is something that emanates from within, then I do feel like the ability to be authentic, to be vulnerable, sometimes in spaces where that could be predatory and preyed upon, and it could be perhaps life-threatening. I think, you know, I think that that's something that has to be examined and explored, and also there has to be an environment and a setting where Black men can do that without feeling threatened.
You know, so I'm so grateful for the question that Chris just asked of you, and even more so in the response that you offered back to all of us, right? Because these are, in some ways, very complicated, socially constructed issues, right? Particularly the sort of shifting notion of an exterior expression, right? And whether or not, you know, and so, but one of the things that you said in your facilitated sort of response there was about wearing the mask, removing the mask, the purpose of the mask, the function of the mask as a protection, right? And so the question, and I'm just going to give you a different example. I think that I'm a relatively joyous person, right? Joy-filled person,
right? And I walk through life with my own little rhythm and my own little way of being, which is mostly joyful, right? But there are times when there are certain folks that say, oh, you look so mean. You look so mad, right? And that's the social construction of Black male-ness, right? That I often have to sort of renegotiate, not in myself, but to help them understand, right? Right, that that what is being projected on this body, on this face, right, is not necessarily in alignment with the reality of who I am, right, as a joy-filled person, right? I love this presentation. I love this work, right? And I love this invitation to invite us to hang out of the window, right? I just love the idea of saying, go, look out the window, hang out of the window, right? Right, and be sort of immersed in, right, in the moment of being in that invitation. And I have to tell you, and I'm glad you used the phrase earlier about the time lapse, right? There's something quite special in that lapse sequence, right? I mean, I love the moment, separate from the alligators. I'm from Louisiana, trust me, I know, right? And you were sitting right next to that. But the movement of the water, right? And what I was writing down during that presentation was really about the water. About the washing over, about the bathing, about a baptism, about cleansing, about renewal, about libation, about this thing that was happening there, right? You know, and not that it's simulated in the sense of time lapse, right? But that's, to me, is at the core, right, of the argument, right? About taking the time to allow that moment, right, to refresh yourself, right, in meaningful ways. And my friend on the screen, right, is it Dipbuk, right? You know, what I wrote during your presentation that I just loved, right? And I keyed in on some words, waking up, awakening, being woke, I'm now staring you in the face. That's my poem for you, right? Because I think that it's a beautiful presentation, and I think that's, you know, sort of the core of sort of this reclaiming a sense of trauma, right? And practicing a kind of personal strength and activism that I think is wonderful in that presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And wonderful too, another link, isn't there, in terms of the way in which you see yourself and the way in which the world might see you, and at different times. So again, a really great link between the two. Would anyone like to respond?
I just want to say, your comments resonate with me so much. This whole idea, especially this idea about how I am perceived and how I'm feeling on the inside. I have had more than a few people, you know, ask me, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I'm fine. I'm fine. I may be perfectly fine and content in that moment, but there's something about, you know, what's happening right here. Maybe I'm not conscious of it, or maybe it's also, as you said, something that's projected onto me that is just like making people feel uncomfortable about my presence in that moment.
There's a question back there. I think we're kind of at time, I'm afraid. I just want to give Dipbuk the chance to respond.
Sorry, could you say?
I just wondered if you wanted to say anything, Dipbuk, if you wanted to respond.
Just that when I wrote this piece, I thought to myself, how do I recover? What is there anything joyful about writing this? And I don't find any joy in writing it, but and I don't anticipate it will come, but it provides a means of being able to continue to breathe. And
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm really sorry, we are at coffee time, but I'm sure the discussions can continue on and offline. Thank you so much, such great papers. Thank you.
If you don't mind, may I take an Ussie, which is a photo of everybody? Are you okay with an Ussie? All right, come in close. do it real quick, because I'm gonna get fancy with it. Is everybody in? All right, just 2 seconds. I see you stretching in the back. All right, and then, wait a minute. I got y'all. Got 2. And then, let me get fancy with my glasses. Hey, Meta. Take a picture. Oh, shit.
That's good. That's good.